Almost every Jeep owner makes at least one of these mistakes. They look like smart upgrades, but they quietly destroy engines, transmissions, warranties, and wallets. Before you bolt on your next mod, watch this countdown, because one of these upgrades could be the most expensive mistake you ever make. Number 8 is the straight pipe. We start with the loud one. Owners rip out the catalytic converter, the part in the exhaust that scrubs the nasty fumes clean, and drop in a straight, hollow pipe so the Jeep roars down the block. It sounds fast, but it does the opposite. Sitting in that exhaust are little oxygen sensors that read your fumes and tell the computer how much fuel to feed the engine. Rip the converter out, and one of those sensors starts reading garbage, so the computer throws a code, lights up the dashboard, and often drops the Jeep into a weak limp mode that guesses at the fuel and wastes gas. And on a normal Jeep, that straight pipe doesn't even add real power. The stock exhaust was barely holding it back to begin with, so all that noise buys you almost nothing. What it does buy you is trouble. It's flat out illegal to gut your emissions on a street truck. The federal fines run into the thousands, and shops caught selling these parts have been hit for millions. In the strictest states, that fine can be charged per part, per day, so it quietly climbs while you sleep. The Jeep also flunks every emissions test, so good luck registering it or selling it later. And that converter you tossed is the one thing keeping the nastiest fumes out of the air you breathe, which is the whole reason the law cares so much. Loud today? Sorry tomorrow. But the next one is even sneakier, because it looks completely harmless. Number 7 is the wrong oil. This one sounds boring, so stick with me, because it's the quietest killer on the whole list. Every Jeep engine is built for one exact kind of oil, and it's printed right there on the cap and in the manual. The gas V6 wants a thin, full synthetic. The little Turbo 4 wants its own grade, and the diesel needs a special European diesel oil that costs more and isn't the same stuff at all. Pour the cheap wrong bottle into the wrong engine, and you're begging for trouble. Put regular oil in that diesel, and it bakes deposits into the turbo and wears it out early. Grab dollar store conventional when your engine calls for synthetic, then stretch the change way past when you should, and the oil turns to sludge that chokes the tiny passages feeding the engine. And those first few seconds on a cold morning are when most of the wear happens, so old, tired oil hurts the most right when you fire it up. Then there's the additive aisle, all those mystery bottles that promise to restore power or flush your engine clean. Modern Jeep engines aren't built for that random stuff, and dumping it in can loosen gunk that plugs things up even worse. It won't blow up today. Instead, it steals miles off the back end of your engine's life, so slowly, you never connect the dots. That's the quiet one. The next one, though, can cook your engine on a single hot afternoon. Number 6 is the big steel bumper and light bar. Every serious Jeep gets dressed up. A heavy steel bumper, a winch, a fat light bar stretched across the front. It looks tough, and honestly, it is tough. But your radiator sits right behind that grill, and it needs a strong, steady rush of air pushing through it to keep the engine cool. Bolt a chunky bumper and a wide light bar right across that opening, and you choke off the air the radiator is begging for. The transmission cooler lives up front too, so now your gearbox runs hotter at the exact same time. Add the big tires and boxy add-ons that fight the wind, and the engine works harder while getting less cooling than ever. Then there's the wiring. A winch and a row of lights pull a ton of power, and when they're wired sloppy or run all at once, they lean hard on the alternator and the battery. Push that too far, and you're not just killing batteries, you're cooking the wiring tucked behind your dash. On a hot day, crawling slow on a trail or stuck in traffic, the temperature needle starts creeping up. Let an engine run hot enough for long enough, and you can warp the metal, blow a key seal called the head gasket, and turn a great motor into scrap. The scary part is how quiet it happens. There's no puddle and no big obvious mistake, just a Jeep that runs a little hotter every summer until one day it doesn't cool back down. That's a slow burn. This next one is the mod people actually buy on purpose, thinking it's free power. Number 5 is the $20 Amazon Power Chip. You've seen the ads. A little box you plug in that hands you free horsepower and better mileage, all for the price of a pizza. It sounds too good to be true, and it is. Curious people have cracked these boxes open, and inside almost every single one sits one cheap resistor worth about 10 cents, and nothing else. There's no real computer and no actual tuning inside, just that one little part. All it does is fool the sensor that measures how hot the air coming into your engine is. The computer sees that fake cold reading and dumps in extra fuel it never needed. On old cars, that trick sometimes did a tiny thing. On a modern Jeep, it just makes the engine run rich and messy, drink more gas, idle rough, and flash a check engine light. Some owners even report the Jeep dropping into limp mode and killing sensors after one of these sat plugged in too long. Put one on a dyno, the machine that actually measures power, and it reads 0, not a single extra pony. And if a dealer spots it while chasing a problem, they can point at it and deny your warranty. So you hand over real money to make your Jeep run worse, maybe fry the electronics, and risk your coverage, all for a 10-cent part in a shiny case. That one's just money set on fire. Quick pause. If you want your Jeep to last 300,000 miles or more, check out my Jeep maintenance ebook. It shows exactly what to replace, when to replace it, and the mistakes to avoid. Link in the description below. Number 4 is the cheap cold air intake. This is the mod almost every new Jeep owner buys first. It's cheap, it makes the engine growl, and it feels like free power. But a lot of these cheap intakes hang the filter down low, right up front where the air is. That sounds clever until you roll through one deep puddle. Water gets sucked straight into the engine, and water doesn't squish like air does, so it can bend the metal rods inside and lock the whole motor up solid. Mechanics call it hydrolock, and it can total an engine in one single second. A deep crossing that a stock airbox would have shrugged off can drown a Jeep that has the filter hanging low. Then there's the filter itself. The cheap ones don't block fine dust like the factory box does, so grit slips past and slowly sands down your cylinder walls. That same dirt can coat the little sensor that measures your airflow, and once it's dirty, the Jeep stumbles, stalls, and reads the wrong amount of air. And there's a part nobody mentions. Most of these budget intakes have no heat shield, so instead of pulling in cool air, they suck in hot air right off the engine, which actually makes less power than the stock box you tossed. That factory box was quiet, sealed tight, and actually tuned for your engine. Boring, maybe, but it kept the dirt and the water out for a reason. One puddle or one dusty trail, and the $90 part that was supposed to wake your engine up is the reason it's sitting in pieces. That's brutal enough on its own, but the next mod takes that same disaster and makes it worse, on purpose. Number 3 is the snorkel, put on wrong. A snorkel is that tube running up the side of the windshield. The whole point is to let the engine breathe from way up high, so you can cross deep water without drowning the motor. Done right, it works great. But a snorkel is only as good as it seals, and plenty of people slap one on and skip the sealing. If the joints and connections aren't locked down airtight, you've basically built a straw that sucks in whatever it wants. On dusty trails, it pulls in fine grit that grinds the engine down from the inside. In water, it's even worse. A leaky snorkel lets water sneak in through the gaps, and that water goes straight where you never, ever want it. Right into the cylinders. And you already know what water in the cylinders does. It hydrolocks the engine and bends the rods. The exact same failure from that cheap intake a minute ago, except this time it was supposed to be the safety part. That's the cruel twist. A guy bolts on a snorkel feeling safer than ever, drives into water he'd usually avoid, and that false confidence is the very thing that drowns his motor. That kind of leaky snorkel is worse than no snorkel at all, because it talks you into deeper water while quietly letting the water in. And bent rods or a cracked block means a rebuild that climbs into the thousands. The tube that was supposed to save the engine ends up killing it. This next one, though, can get you a bill straight from the government. Number 2 is the EcoDiesel Delete. Some Jeeps came with a 3-liter diesel engine, and it's packed with emissions parts that clog up, throw codes, and drive owners crazy. So a lot of people pay a shop to rip those parts out, a move they call a delete. It makes the headaches vanish, and that feels like a win. But this is where it turns ugly, fast. Ripping the emissions gear off a street Jeep breaks federal law, and the fines are no joke. For a regular owner, that fine can top $5,000, and that's before the shop that sold the kit gets buried too. Then comes the twist nobody sees coming. That annoying diesel part, the exhaust cooler, actually had a real problem straight from the factory. Jeep recalled tens of thousands of Grand Cherokees because that cooler could crack and start an engine fire, and they fix it for free. Then more than 45,000 Jeeps and Rams got hit with a second recall, this time for a diesel fuel pump that can come apart and blow tiny metal shavings through the whole engine, stalling you out on the highway with no warning. And a delete only works if the tune keeps lying to the computer, so one bad update can drop the whole truck into limp mode and leave you crawling home. So the second you delete and tune your Jeep, you throw all that free warranty help away, right when you might need it most. You also make the truck almost impossible to sell in any state that checks emissions, because it'll fail on the spot. You pay good money to break the law, lose your safety net, and wreck your resale, all at once. That's about as bad as a mod gets. But the biggest mistake of all is also the most common, and almost every Jeep owner makes it. Number 1 is big tires with no regearing. This is the big one. Nothing looks more Jeep than giant tires, but nobody warns you about this at the tire shop. Your Jeep left the factory with small gears, often numbers like 3.21 or 3.45, and those gears were matched to small tires. Bolt on 35-inch monsters, and now your engine and transmission have to spin a much bigger, heavier wheel using the same muscle they had before. It's like riding a bike stuck in the hardest gear, up a hill, forever. The engine ends up lugging and hunting for the right gear, revving up and dropping down over and over, working harder on every hill and every merge. That transmission slips more, the fluid heats up, and heat is the number one thing that kills automatic transmissions. All that heat spreads to the axles, the wheel bearings, and the ball joints too, so the whole Jeep wears out faster while it's at it. So people spend around $1,500 on tires, skip the gear work to save a few bucks, and a year later they're staring at a $5,000 transmission rebuild. One tire expert straight up calls it a $6,500 lesson. The real fix, called regearing, means swapping in gears that match the new tires, and it usually runs $1,200 to $2,000. It saves the transmission, the engine, and everything that turns the wheels. Skip it, and your Jeep runs hot and hurts every single mile, even on the days it feels totally fine. Your speedometer even lies to you now, showing you slower than you're really moving, and your brakes have to fight those heavy tires every time you stop. That's the one that gets almost everybody. Line up all 8 and you'll spot the same trap every single time. Each one felt like an upgrade the day it went on. A meaner sound, bigger tires, free power, more protection, a tougher look sitting in the driveway. But your Jeep engine doesn't care what looks cool parked outside. It wants clean air, the right oil, steady cooling, and gears that match the tires. None of that shows up in a photo, and none of it gets you a second look at the trailhead, but it's the whole difference between a Jeep that dies early and one that runs for hundreds of thousands of miles. Give it those 4 things, skip the shiny traps, and that motor will happily outlast almost everything you can bolt onto it. Which mistake surprised you the most? Or have you seen any of these happen? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, hit that subscribe button because I post new Jeep videos every week to help you avoid expensive repairs and keep your Jeep running for the long haul. And if you want to keep watching, click the video on your screen now. I'll see you there.